The phone vibrated against the nightstand with the specific, aggressive rhythm of a disaster waiting to happen. 2 a.m. The sun hadn't even thought about rising over the Chicago skyline yet, but apparently, stupidity was an early riser. I squinted at the screen. Preston, VP Strategy. I cleared my throat, sliding my finger across the glass. Deanna here. Yes. Hey, Diana. Look, this isn't working out. No preamble. No good morning. Just the static, filled voice of a nepotism hire calling from what sounded like inside his walk-in closet. I'm sorry. I sat up, pulling the duvet tighter around me. The air in the condo was freezing. The heating unit had been making a death rattle for weeks, much like the company's Q3 earnings report. You're too difficult to manage, Preston said. I could hear him chewing something. A bagel, nicotine gum, the audacity. My dad and I talked it over last night. We need agility. Your legacy infrastructure. We are pivoting to a leaner client approach. So, effective immediately, we are letting you go. HR. We'll email the Cobra stuff. You're too difficult to manage, the VP sunset on a 6 a.m. call, firing me before sunrise. At 9, I accepted an offer from their $700 million rival. By noon, their investors started pulling out. Later, the CEO's voice cracked on the call. Who gave her the client list? But in that cold, dark moment, I didn't blink. I didn't cry. My heart rate didn't even spike. That's the thing about working in high-stakes client relations for a decade. You develop a reptilian indifference to chaos. You learn to filter noise and focus only on critical data points. But difficult to manage. That wasn't a critique of my work, it was a confession of his incompetence. I was the one who remembered the investors' children's birthdays. I was the one who talked the Sterling Group off the ledge when our tech stack imploded last November. My worth was not in the title on my card, it was in the leverage of my relationships. I wasn't legacy infrastructure. I was the load-bearing wall. The one thing keeping the whole structure from falling down. Noted, I said. My voice was flat, void of the panic he was probably hoping for. He wanted a fight. He wanted me to beg so he could feel like a titan of industry instead of a boy playing with his father's checkbook. Okay? Well, good luck, he stammered, clearly thrown by my lack of hysterics. The line went dead. I stared at the phone. My entire career at Optima Holdings, 10 years of blood, sweat, and missed anniversaries, ended by a kid who probably thought EBITDA was a Greek island. The sun hadn't even thought about breaking the horizon, but I was wide awake and filled with a cold, clear purpose. I didn't go back to sleep. I didn't cry into my pillow. I swung my legs out of bed and walked straight to my home office. The glow of the monitors was the only light in the room. I sat down at my desk, the leather of my chair cold against my pajamas. My fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard. The satisfying clack, clack, clack sounded like gunfire in the quiet apartment. My access hadn't been cut yet. Amateurs. Preston had fired me at 6:03 a.m. He didn't get in until 8 a.m. The automated revocation script usually ran at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. That gave me a nearly 3-hour window where I was technically fired but digitally alive. I was a ghost in the machine. I logged into the CRM, the Client Relationship Management System. My first thought was not panic but strategy. I didn't delete anything. That's illegal. That's amateur hour. Deleting files leaves a footprint. It screams disgruntled employee. I wasn't disgruntled. I was strategic. I was going to leave a gaping hole, a vacuum where essential context used to be. I navigated to the client notes section. This is where the company's real value lived, not the contracts. Contracts are just paper. Notes were the gold. They contained the soft intel, which investor was going through a divorce and needed extra reassurance, which CEO preferred text over emails, which CFO was secretly shopping for a new platform and the specific vintage of scotch to send Mr. Sterling when the market dipped. I didn't download the list. Downloading triggers a DLP, a data loss prevention alert. Instead, I opened the files, I looked at them. I let my photographic memory, my greatest professional asset, do what it had been doing for 20 years. I didn't need a flash drive, I needed coffee, and then I was going to make their lives miserable. But first, I indulged in one small, petty thing. I went into the calendar system for the upcoming quarterly review, the one Preston was supposed to lead next week to prove his worth to the board. I didn't delete the meeting. I just uninvited the key stakeholders. Then, I turned off the notification that would alert the organizer, Preston, of the change. To the system, it would look like a glitch. To the investors, it would look like the meeting was canceled. To Preston, on the day of the presentation, it would look like an empty room. I logged out at 6:45 a.m., right as the sun began to bleed gray light through the blinds. I walked to the kitchen and started the coffee grinder. The noise was aggressive, violent, and beautiful. Difficult to manage. I whispered to the empty kitchen, pouring the beans. Preston had made a critical calculation error. He thought my value was in a database, a spreadsheet he could just hand over to some fresh grad in a polyester suit. He didn't realize that I was the list. The relationships were tethered to me, not the logo on my business card. He hadn't just fired an employee. He had severed the nervous system of the company. The adrenaline of the firing had been instantly metabolized into a strategic blueprint, giving me exactly 180 minutes to be a ghost in the machine. I wasn't just planning revenge. I was undertaking an act of corporate triage, saving myself by letting the diseased limb fall off. I took the first sip of the bitter, black coffee. It was hot, tasted like freedom, and immediately focused my mind. Preston had locked me out of the digital company structure. But he hadn't locked me out of my own head. My photographic memory, honed by years of late nights and high-pressure audits, was the most secure data storage system I owned. I had logged out of the CRM, but the soft intel remained vivid. The CFO of Blue Sky, Mr. Henderson, blocks any email with the word synergy in the subject line. The regional manager for Vanguard has a daughter with a rare allergy, and the gift basket needs to be sourced from a specific, small batch, certified organic supplier. The correct password hint for the main legacy database was the name of the founder's first boat, which was not in any documentation, but was a detail I'd picked up during a 3-hour dinner 6 years ago. These weren't data points. They were relationship passwords. They had the list of names and numbers in the system, but they didn't know how to use it. They didn't know that you don't call Mr. Sterling before 9 a.m. because he is walking his prize-winning Dachshund, and he absolutely will hang up on you. I had been the context, the metadata, the human filter that turned a spreadsheet into a $700 million portfolio. And that was my power. I didn't steal the data. I simply took the context, the meaning, with me. The feeling wasn't rage, it was a cold, pure calculation, a quiet joy in knowing I held the true keys to the kingdom. This act of intellectual inventory confirmed my value to myself more than any promotion ever could. I leaned back, thinking about the uninvited stakeholders on Preston's calendar. That small, petty act, the uninvited glitch, was pure psychological warfare. When Preston walked into an empty Zoom room tomorrow, the panic wouldn't be about lost data. It would be about losing face in front of his father and the board. But simple sabotage was not enough. I wasn't just leaving a problem for Optima. I needed to secure my future, and I knew exactly where that future was. I picked up my phone again. 6:58 a.m. I scrolled past my mother's contact, past my ex-husband's number, which I really should delete. I stopped on a name I hadn't dialed in 3 years, Marcus Thorne, Regional Director at Apex Capital. Our direct competitor, a $700 million behemoth at Optima, had been trying to undercut for years. Marcus had tried to poach me 5 times. The last time I had told him I was loyal to the vision at Optima. Loyalty. God, that word tasted like ash now. Loyalty is just corporate speak for sucker. I checked the time. 7:00 a.m. This was the power window. You don't call a competitor during office hours. That's desperate. You don't do it after hours. That's intrusive. You do it in the slice of time between the gym and the first meeting of the day, when they are at their sharpest, and their mind is clear enough to appreciate the magnitude of the opportunity you are presenting. I hit dial. It rang once. Dana. Marcus's voice was crisp. No confusion, no hello. He knew exactly who was calling. That's the difference between a professional and a pretender. Morning, Marcus, I said, walking toward the window to watch the gray light of dawn break over the street. I hope I'm not interrupting your meditation. Just finishing an espresso. To what do I owe the pleasure? Finally decided to let me buy you that lunch? I'm actually free for breakfast, I said. Or more accurately, I'm free for the foreseeable future. As of about 90 minutes ago, there was a silence on the line. Not an awkward silence, but a heavy one. The sound of a shark sensing blood in the water. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, calculating the value of the information I had just given him. He knew exactly what this meant. They fired you? Marcus asked, his tone dropping an octave. Preston did. Said I was too difficult to manage. Wanted to pivot to agility. I spat the word out. Marcus let out a short, bark-like laugh. Agility. That's what people say right before they drive the car off a cliff because they fired the only person who knows how to use the brakes. His response was exactly the respect I needed right now. It cut through the corporate jargon and spoke directly to the core truth of my competence. I'm not calling to vent, Marcus. I know, he said. You're calling because you know that I know Optima's entire Q1 strategy relies on 3 key accounts. Accounts that, if I recall correctly, only take calls from you. God, it was refreshing to talk to an adult. An equal. My shoulders dropped slightly, easing a tension I hadn't realized I was holding. I'm not confirming or denying anything, I said, keeping it legally vague. I'm just saying that I am currently a free agent, but my non-compete. I paused for effect, ensuring he understood the game. Well, let's just say Optima's HR department has been a revolving door for 5 years. The paperwork for my last promotion in 2019 is probably a coaster on someone's desk in the Cayman Islands. I'm wide open. I was not just securing a job, I was strategically placing myself where my value was not only recognized but desperately needed. I felt a surge of cold, professional satisfaction. The sting of betrayal was still there, but it was now entirely manageable. replaced by the thrill of the hunt. I was not a victim, I was a strategic asset. Hanging up the phone with Marcus, I realized my future was no longer tied to a building I hated. It was tied to a man who, unlike Preston, saw my value as a weapon, not a threat. The conversation had lasted less than 7 minutes, yet it had accomplished more than my last 3 quarterly reviews at Optima. Name your number, Marcus had said, bypassing the usual tedious dance of salary negotiation. A 20% bump on base, Senior V.P title, and I want full autonomy on the Sterling account if they decide to migrate. I replied, I didn't ask for a new espresso machine or extra vacation days. I asked for power and control over the client I knew best. I asked for the right to do my job without interference from trust fund babies. Don't. Marcus said, no hesitation. I'll have the offer letter in your inbox in 10 minutes. Can you start Monday? I can start now. I corrected him. I needed this immediate re-engagement, this professional validation, to keep the fear of failure locked away. Even better. I've got a 10 a.m. strategy call. I'll send you the Zoom link. Don't say anything, just show up. I want to see the look on my team's face. I hung up, feeling a giddy rush of pure, unadulterated competence. It was 7:42 a.m. I had been unemployed for exactly 1 hour and 39 minutes. In that time, I had secured a raise, a promotion, and a front row seat to my old company's funeral. I walked to the kitchen and looked at the clock on the microwave. I had 1 hour and 17 minutes before the rest of the world, including Preston, would be walking into their offices. This was the window for the crucial next step, the public declaration. Back in the apartment, the adrenaline started to settle into a cold, hard resolve. I walked into the bathroom, feeling the need to wash away the feeling of Preston's voice, the residue of 10 years of corporate servitude. I showered, scrubbing off the invisible dirt of the morning. Then, I put on my armor, a charcoal suit, a silk blouse, and the pearl earrings I bought myself after closing the Anderson deal 5 years ago. A deal Preston had tried to take credit for. I checked my personal email on my laptop. The offer letter from Apex Capital was already there, timestamped 7:55 a.m. Marcus didn't mess around. I signed it digitally. My hand didn't shake. The contract looked tight, well written, and fair, the product of a functional organization. At 8:55 a.m., I received a text from Optima's automated system, remote wipe initiated. Device will reset in 60 seconds. I watched my company-issued phone go black. The small Apple logo appeared, wiping away 10 years of emails, texts, and contacts. They thought they were hurting me. They thought erasing the phone erased the threat. It was pathetic. I set the useless piece of plastic down and picked up my personal phone, the one I had just used to sign a contract with their biggest rival. I opened LinkedIn. It was time to light the match. I didn't write a scathing tell-all. That's tacky. That's divorced. Dad on Facebook energy. No. Corporate warfare is subtle. It's passive-aggressive. It's the bless your heart, weaponized into a status update. This was my statement of intent, and it had to be perfect. I typed carefully. After 10 incredible years, I'm closing the chapter at Optima. It's been a journey. While I'll miss the incredible teams I've built, sometimes you outgrow a space that can no longer support your vision. I paused. I needed the kill shot. Excited to announce that I've accepted a Senior V.P role at Apex Capital, starting well, immediately. To my clients, you know where to find me. Everyone else, let's build something real. I hit post. The vacuum effect had begun. I poured a second cup of coffee and waited for the inevitable ping of panic. It didn't take long. By 10 a.m., my LinkedIn post had more engagement than Optima's last 3 product launches combined. The corporate world is a small, incestuous village. Everyone knows everyone, and everyone loves a train wreck, especially when the conductor is a 20-something with a trust fund. Comments rolled in. They were a mix of generic congratulations, bots, and carefully worded inquiries from people who smelled smoke. Huge loss for Optima, commented the CFO of a logistics firm we managed. A public shot across the bow. Can't wait to see what you do at Apex, wrote a vendor who I knew hated Preston personally because Preston once asked him if he could Venmo a $50,000 invoice. But the real action was in the direct messages. My inbox was flooding. 2 investors, heavy hitters with portfolios worth north of $50 million, emailed me privately. Where are you headed? We need to talk. Does this mean the Q3 restructure is off? Call me. I didn't reply immediately. In negotiation, silence is leverage. If you answer too fast, you look eager. If you wait, you look busy, important. I wanted to look like I was already fixing someone else's problems that paid better and had less nepotism. I realized that for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for permission to be valuable. I was demanding it, and the market was instantly paying the premium. The silence in my condo after hitting post was quickly replaced by the aggressive pinging of a corporate vacuum effect, the sound of a company realizing its load-bearing wall had just walked away. I watched the direct messages stack up, each one a testament to the power of context over data. They weren't asking about Optima's strategy, they were asking about me. One message, however, broke through the noise of executive panic. It was a text from inside the burning building. It was from Chloe Miller, a junior analyst I had mentored. She was bright, hardworking, and unfortunately currently sitting 20 feet away from Preston's office, about to witness the full, messy consequences of his decisions. Ars Chloe 10:14 a.m. Miser. Oh my God, Dana, tell me it's not true. I sipped my coffee, watching the bubbles pop on the surface. Poor Chloe. She was witnessing the meltdown in real time. I felt my first genuine twinge of guilt. The junior staff, the IT guys, the receptionists, they were the collateral damage in Preston's ego trip, innocent people caught in the blast radius of corporate incompetence. Chloe, 10:14 a.m. S. Preston, just walked out of his office looking like he swallowed a bee. He's asking for your laptop password. He says you compromised the integrity of the database. He had immediately jumped to the easiest lie: sabotage. It was easier for him to blame a vengeful woman than to admit he was utterly useless without her. Chloe, 10:15 a.m. Buresis, did you give someone the list? Everyone is freaking out. I set my mug down. I needed to reply carefully. I wasn't going to drag her into a legal inquiry, but I wasn't going to let her believe the company narrative, either. I texted, I didn't give anyone anything, Chloe. I just left. The list is in the system. Tell him to check the cloud backups if he can figure out the password. Hint it's not password 123 anymore. Us, Chloe, 10:17 a.m.s. He's screaming at the CTO. Says clients are emailing him asking why their scheduled calls are disappearing from the calendar. Dana, what did you do? The glitch was working. The calendar sabotage was playing out exactly as planned, silently, confusingly, and with maximum humiliation. Preston was chasing a non-existent IT issue while the clients were feeling ghosted. I responded nothing. I just stopped holding the ceiling up. I closed my eyes for a moment. Chloe didn't deserve this. She was exactly the kind of smart, dedicated employee Optima should have been cultivating. But you can't save everyone when the ship is sinking. Sometimes the best you can do is show them where the lifeboats are. I concluded, update your resume, Chloe. Send it to me tonight. Apex is hiring. That small. Simple act of reaching out was the first time all morning I had acted purely out of something other than professional strategy. It was a crack in my reptilian defense, a tiny surge of care for someone else's fate. My emotional arc had taken its first step toward vulnerability, not by crying, but by protecting a human connection. I looked at my laptop screen. The Zoom meeting for Apex Capital was starting. 10 a.m. sharp. I clicked join. The screen populated with faces. Marcus Thorne was there, looking smug and professionally delighted. His team, a group of high-powered sales and marketing VPs, looked deeply confused. They were in the middle of discussing how to breach Optima's hold on the manufacturing sector. And that's why? Marcus was saying, one need to figure out a way to bypass their relationship manager. He stopped abruptly, saw my face in the grid of participants, and grinned like a Cheshire cat. Morning, everyone, I said, adjusting my camera slightly. Sorry I'm late. Traffic from the bedroom to the office was a nightmare. The silence in the Zoom room was exquisite. It lasted 3 solid, agonizing seconds. I watched the marketing director's eyes widen, a perfect mix of awe and terror. They knew who I was. They had been trying to beat me for years. Now, I was sitting at their table. Everyone, Marcus said, his voice ringing with pure triumph. Meet our new Senior V.P. of Client Relations. Dana, why don't you tell the team why they don't need to worry about bypassing the relationship manager anymore? I leaned into the microphone, my voice clear and utterly self-assured, because I'm the relationship manager, and I think Mr. Sterling is expecting a call from us around lunch. I muted myself, watching my new team begin a flurry of silent, ecstatic messages. I had delivered the ultimate professional validation to myself and to Marcus. But more importantly, I had fully stepped into my power. The rage and betrayal of the morning were gone, replaced by the certainty that my competence was absolute, and now it was for sale to the highest, most respectful bidder. Back at Optima, they were still arguing over a password. My work was just beginning. Vanguard was the first whale to surface. Securing that account wasn't just a win, it was the entire west wing of the Optima castle. When that floorboard cracked, the whole building tilted. Just after 10:30 a.m., I received an email on my newly configured Apex account. The sender was Alina Rodriguez, VP of Operations at Vanguard Corp. The subject line was simply, "Lunch, buddy." The body read, "Just heard the news. Their loss. We are removing Optima from the pending deal chain effective immediately." Operational instability. That's the official reason. Unofficially, the new kid called me sweetheart on a voicemail. Let's talk transfer protocols. I forwarded the email to Marcus Thorne with a single note, incoming. The confirmation felt like a physical weight lifting off my chest. I hadn't even had to solicit them. Preston's sheer incompetence and arrogance had done the work for me. The idea that he thought he could flirt his way through a complex, multi-million-dollar manufacturing contract was an insult to everyone involved. I had managed the Vanguard relationship for 6 years, and Alina trusted me because I once drove a hard drive across state lines at 3 a.m. to save her audit. That was trust. Being called sweetheart was a termination offense. This confirmed my emotional beat. My value was in my professional integrity, the core competency that Preston, the entitled child, could never replicate. The seismic event back at Optima must have been registered on the stock market monitors. Vanguard pulling out wasn't just an email, it was an instant, quantifiable drop in revenue projections. I imagined Preston staring at a flashing red dashboard, scrambling to explain the hemorrhage to the CFO. Before the Vanguard news could fully register, the next wave hit. My personal phone rang. It was a 312 area code. Optima Legal. Hello. Darkness, my old friend, I muttered. I picked up. Miss Evans, a voice like sandpaper. It was Gerald, the general counsel, a man who had been asleep at the wheel since 2015. Hi, Gerald. Long time. Did you finally find that Tupperware I left in the fridge? This isn't a social call, Dana. We have reason to believe you are in violation of your employment agreement. We are seeing activity indicating you are soliciting clients. His voice was stiff with professional rage. I'm not soliciting anyone, Gerald. They are calling me. There's a difference. It's called freedom of choice. It's very popular in America. You have a non-compete. He barked. Section 4, Paragraph 2. You are barred from working with any competitor for 18 months. I let him finish. I knew exactly what his playbook was: use fear and boilerplate legal jargon to stop the bleeding. But I had prepared for this. This was where Optima's fundamental administrative chaos was about to become my ultimate shield. Gerald, I said, my voice dropping to a soothing, patronizing tone, the same tone I used to de-escalate angry CEOs during a tech outage. Do you have the signed copy of that agreement? Of course we do. It's in your file. Is it? I countered, leaning into the mic. Or is it in the box of files that got lost when we moved floors in 2019? Because I seem to recall HER sending out a panic email asking everyone to sign their docs, and I seem to recall forgetting. Silence. The kind of silence that costs billable hours. I'm looking at the digital record, he blustered, trying to save face. Digital record says pending signature, doesn't it? I guessed. It was a gamble, but an educated one. When Optima merged with the Theta Group, their HR director was fired for embezzlement and half the files were misplaced during the subsequent audit. I knew the exact window of chaos I had slipped through. I had been too busy saving the Sterling account that year to click on an unsigned digital document. We will bury you in litigation, Gerald threatened, losing his composure and slipping into pure malice. You can try, I said, completely calm. But while you're drafting the lawsuit, Vanguard is drafting a termination letter. You might want to focus on that. I hung up. My hand was trembling slightly, not from fear, but from a surge of righteous anger. They really thought they owned me. They thought a piece of paper that they couldn't even find superseded my right to earn a living after they kicked me to the curb at dawn. I took a deep breath, letting the anger settle into cold resolve. Let them swing, I whispered to myself, echoing the advice I knew Marcus's legal team would give me. I was not just escaping a job. I was winning a legal battle based on my superior knowledge of their operational failures. The legal conflict was definitively won. Now, it was time to move on to the biggest target. Vanguard was a win, but Arthur Sterling was the bellwether. Securing him wasn't revenge. It was an act of corporate regicide. I knew the lunch meeting was where the war would be won or lost. Arthur Sterling was the whale, the legacy investor. He'd been with Optima since the 1990s. He was old money, old school, and famously grumpy. He hated change, but he hated incompetence more. I knew that without him, Optima's ship wouldn't just sink, it would capsize, signaling to the entire market that the company was unsafe. I drafted the email, no subject line, just his name, Arthur Sterling. Mr. Sterling, I wanted to personally inform you that as of this morning, I am no longer with Optima. It was not my choice to leave, but it is my choice where I go next. I am now at Apex Capital. I know you value continuity. I know you hate the dashboard interface Preston is trying to push. I know you just want your quarterly dividends to arrive on time without a strategy pivot conversation. I'm having lunch at the grill tomorrow, 12:30 p.m., name table. If you are hungry, I'd love to buy you a steak. If not, it was an honor serving you. Dana, I hit send. This was the risk. If Sterling stayed with Optima, Richard, Preston's father, could stabilize the ship. If Sterling left, the damage would be irreparable. I waited 1 minute. 2 minutes. My inbox pinged. From Arthur Sterling to Dana Evans at Apex Capital. The body contained just 3 sentences. I like my steak rare. See you at 12:30. I let out a laugh that sounded a little bit like a sob. The sheer, glorious professional affirmation of that tiny message was staggering. This is what panic smells like, I thought. I forwarded Sterling's reply to Marcus. You just earned your bonus. The grill is one of those Chicago institutions where the waiters wear white jackets and the martinis are the size of bird baths. It's where deals are made, or in my case, where revenge is served rare. I arrived at 12:15 p.m. I wanted to be seated, composed, and in control before Sterling arrived. I secured table 4 in the corner, away from the prying eyes of the lunch crowd. At 12:30 on the dot, Arthur Sterling walked in. He was 72, walked with a cane that looked like it could conceal a sword, and wore a suit that cost more than my first car. He spotted me and, for the first time in 10 years, he smiled, a genuine, crinkle-eyed smile. Dana, he said, easing himself into the booth. You look lighter. Unemployment suits me, Arthur, I said, signaling the waiter. Sparkling water for me. Scotch, neat for the gentleman. The 18-year. He nodded in approval. You remember? I remember everything. That was my job. This was the core of my value, the soft intel I carried. We ordered. We made small talk about his grandkids, about the cold winter weather. We didn't talk about Optima until the steaks arrived. Arthur cut into his filet with surgical precision. So, he said, not looking up, Preston. Preston, I agreed. The boy is an idiot, Arthur said calmly. I told Richard that when he hired him. I said, Richard, nepotism is fine if the kid is smart. If the kid is a nincompoop, it's suicide. Richard didn't listen. He wanted to modernize. He scoffed. Agility? He wanted to play dress up? Arthur continued, wiping his mouth. He called me last week, you know. He tried to tell me that my portfolio was over-indexed on traditional assets and I should look into crypto. Me? Arthur Sterling? Crypto. He shook his head slowly. I didn't fire him then because I knew you were the firewall. I knew you would filter out the stupidity before it touched my money. I trusted you. I looked him straight in the eye. I tried, Arthur, but the firewall got unplugged this morning. Arthur looked at me. His eyes were sharp, intelligent, and dangerous. I never trusted the VP. I trusted you. You were the one who called me when the market tanked in '08 to tell me not to sell. You were the one who fixed the tax error in 15. You, not the logo? I'm at Apex now, Arthur. They respect the work. They don't think I'm difficult to manage. I finally said the words out loud. The initial betrayal of the morning crystallized into a pure, hard truth. Difficult. Arthur chuckled, the sound like dry leaves. That's what weak men call strong women. My first wife was difficult. She also built half my empire. He took a sip of scotch. I'm moving the fund, Dana, he said quietly. I felt the air leave my lungs. All of it. All of it. The papers are all ready with my lawyers. You'll have them by end of day. That was $80 million walking out the door of Optima. Richard would have a stroke. Richard needs a wake-up call or a retirement plan. Arthur continued. But here's the thing, Dana. I'm not the only one. What do you mean? The terrifying thing about country clubs is that we talk. The Davis family, the Hendersons, the pension fund guys, all been waiting. We were just waiting for you to make the first move. They are leaving, too. If I go, they go. I'm the bellwether. Once the sterling money moves, the herd follows. He raised his glass. To agility. I clinked my glass against his. To agility. It was a staggering revelation. I hadn't just stolen a client. I had triggered a bank run. I looked at my phone under the table. 3 missed calls from Preston. 1 text 12:40, 5 p.m. Can we talk, please? The word, please, was new. I looked at Arthur. Just the past trying to catch up, I said. I think I'll let it go to voicemail. Good girl, Arthur said. Now, tell me about this Apex group. Do they have good scotch? I walked out of that lunch feeling 10 feet tall. I had walked in as a fired employee scrambling for ground. I walked out as the architect of a revolution. My power was undeniable, tied not to a paycheck, but to the deep, consistent respect I had earned. I was never difficult to manage. I was just too valuable to be dismissed. This was the moment I fully embraced my self-worth. I had destroyed the last vestige of the control Optima thought they had over me. The final blow, however, hadn't landed yet. That would happen at the quarterly call, and I intended to be listening. The stock market was currently watching Optima Holdings have a public heart attack. I had severed the nervous system, drained the blood, and now the body corporate was seizing. By 3 p.m., the atmosphere inside Optima must have felt like a submarine that had gone too deep. The pressure was crushing the hull. I was back at my desk, officially logged into Apex's secure server, watching the transfer request from the Sterling Group come through. It was a beautiful document, $80 million, migrating from the sinking ship to the lifeboat. My personal phone was now permanently on Do Not Disturb, but the notifications rolled in like waves. Chloe sent me a text that felt like a war correspondence dispatch. Chloe texted at 3:15 p.m. It's a bloodbath. Richard is in the boardroom screaming at Preston. Preston is crying. Actually crying. The CTO did a full audit of your activity logs. I replied, and he told them I didn't touch a thing. Chloe texted at 3:20 p.m. and he said she didn't delete the data. She just took the passwords to the relationships. Richard threw a stapler. She just took the passwords to the relationships. That was the most poetic and accurate thing anyone at Optima had ever said. They were looking for a crime, a deleted folder, a stolen hard drive, a virus, anything that would make me the villain and them the victim. But there was no crime. It was just competence leaving the building. I leaned back in my ergonomic chair. The rumor mill was spinning out of control. Staffers were updating their LinkedIn profiles in real time. I saw 3 connection requests from Optima VPs in the last hour. Rats swimming toward the floating door. Then came the call from Marcus. "Dana," he said, sounding like he was suppressing a laugh, "you're not going to believe who just called me." "Richard." "No." "Preston." I sat up. "You are kidding." He called the main line, asked to speak to the director. He sounded unhinged. He tried to threaten me with a lawsuit for tortious interference. I put him on speaker so Sarah, our general counsel, could hear. She laughed so loud he hung up. "He's desperate," I said. "He knows Sterling is gone. He probably got the legal notice 10 minutes ago." "Oh, he knows. And get this, Richard is trying to freeze the transfer. He's claiming administrative review. It won't hold, but it buys them 24 hours. It doesn't matter," I confirmed. "The damage is done. The trust is gone. Even if they hold the money hostage, the client is mentally checked out." "Exactly." Marcus agreed. "Listen, the quarterly investor call for Optima is tomorrow morning. It's public because they have some bondholders. You should listen in. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Later that afternoon, my personal cell rang. It was Richard, the CEO, again. This time I answered. I knew exactly why he was calling. I had sent a polite, worded email to the entire board of directors, using my personal Gmail, informing them that I was being blocked by legal threats from the executive team and suggesting they direct all inquiries regarding unresponsive or exiting accounts to Preston. It was a well-placed grenade. "Dana," Richard said. He sounded tired. He sounded old. "I got a call from the board. They forwarded me your email." "Hello, Richard," I said, keeping my voice neutral. "I assumed they might. They are shareholders, after all." "What are you doing, Dana?" "You're poaching clients. You're violating your contract." The desperation was palpable, but still laced with entitlement. "I'm accepting calls." "Richard, there's a difference, and regarding the contract, talk to Gerald. Ask him about the 2019 files, or lack thereof. Preston says you stole the client list." Richard pressed, his voice hardening. "He says you downloaded the database before you were locked out." "Preston lies, Richard. You know that. He lied about his GPA. He lied about the summer internship that was actually a surf camp. And now he's lying about this. I didn't steal a thing." "The list is in the system. The relationship's left with me. You can't copyright trust." There was a long silence. Richard knew I was right. That was the tragedy of it. He was a smart man who had made one fatal error. He loved his idiot son more than his company. "Stop this," Richard said, almost pleadingly. "Come back. We can work this out. Consulting basis higher rate, just fix the bleeding." "I can't do that, Richard. I've already accepted a position at Apex." "Apex." The word came out like a curse. "You went to the competition in 6 hours. Made an offer. They didn't call me difficult. They called me essential. It's amazing what a little respect does for loyalty." "I will destroy you," Richard said, the desperation turning to malice. "I will spend every dollar I have to bury you." "You're already losing dollars, Richard. I wouldn't waste the ones you have left." I hung up. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was pure adrenaline. I had just told a CEO to go to hell, and it felt exhilarating. I had won the psychological war. The betrayal of the morning was finally purged, replaced by an absolute, powerful realization that my professional worth was immutable. I turned to my Apex team chat. Richard just called. He moved from panic bargaining to threats. They are scared. Marcus replied instantly. Good. Keep pressing. Play the ace. Marcus replied instantly. Good. Keep pressing. I'm going to play the ace. The Apex team was already leveraging the chaos I had created. I had secured a new role, confirmed my self-worth, and now I was watching the final consequence of incompetence unfold. The final act was tomorrow's investor call, and Richard Vance was about to face the public truth. The market was done with Optima. I was done with Optima. I was a senior VP at Apex, and the river outside my new window was moving steadily forward, carrying away the wreckage. The Optima Holdings Q3 investor call began at 9 a.m. sharp. I was sitting in my new office at Apex, a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river. The coffee was better here. The air was cleaner. Marcus sat across from me, his feet up on the desk, grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. We dialed into the conference bridge as anonymous guests. Welcome to the Q3 earnings call. The moderator's automated voice intoned. Please hold for the CEO, Richard Vance. Richard came on the line. He sounded like he had aged 10 years in 24 hours. His voice was raspy, thin, utterly defeated. Good morning, everyone, Richard said. We have some updates regarding our strategic outlook. As you know, we are pivoting to a more agile client management structure. I could hear the tremble in his voice. He was reading a script Preston had probably written. He didn't believe a word of it. We are streamlining operations, Richard continued, moving away from legacy infrastructure to a digital-first approach. Legacy infrastructure, Marcus mouthed at me, suppressing a laugh. However, Richard added, the word landing like a stone. We have experienced some short-term volatility in our portfolio retention. We are addressing these issues. The line opened for questions. This is Michael from the pension fund. A voice boomed. I knew Michael. A no-nonsense guy? Richard, I'm looking at the transaction reports. I see an $80 million outflow pending from the Sterling Group and rumors of Vanguard exiting. Can you explain how streamlining operations resulted in losing your two biggest anchors in a single day? Dead silence on the line. I imagined Preston frantically scribbling notes, trying to give his father an answer. Michael, that's a temporary reallocation, Richard stammered. We are in discussions. It doesn't look temporary, Richard. Michael interrupted. I spoke to Arthur Sterling this morning. He said he moved because, and I quote, the only person at Optima who knew how to read a balance sheet was fired yesterday morning. Marcus pumped a fist in the air silently. We had to make personnel changes, Richard said, his voice rising in panic. She was difficult to manage. She wasn't aligned with the vision. The vision. Another investor cut in, his voice incredulous. Richard, the vision seems to be bankruptcy. If she was the one holding the Sterling account, why the hell did you fire her before securing the asset? She must have. Richard was spiraling now, going completely off script. Who gave her the client list? Someone must have given her the list? It was the wail of a dying king. It was the wail of a dying king. She didn't need the list. The investor shouted. She was the list? The call descended into chaos. Voices overlapping. Questions about the stock price. Demands for Preston's resignation. I reached out and pressed the end call button. Silence returned to the office, save for the hum of the air conditioning. Well, Marcus said, exhaling slowly. That went well. Better than expected. I admitted. The stock is down 12% in pre-market. Richard was done. The board would have his head by noon. And Preston would be lucky if he could get a job at a car wash. I looked out the window. The river below was churning, gray and cold, but moving steadily forward. I didn't feel vindictive anymore. I just felt correct. The universe had corrected an error. Competence had won. So, Marcus said, standing up. Lunch. I think Sterling is expecting us to celebrate the transfer. In a minute? I said. I have one last email to answer. I opened my personal inbox. There was a message from Optima's chief compliance officer, a woman named Sarah, the one person at Optima who had tried to warn Richard about Preston's creative accounting years ago. From S. Miller at Optimacom to Dana Evans at Apex Capital. Subject resume. Body. I assume you're hiring. I have the files on the regulatory breaches Preston ignored. Thought they might be useful for your due diligence. I can start Monday. I smiled. The rot was exposed, and the moral compasses were finding the truth. I typed see you Monday, Sarah. I grabbed my coat. Ready? Marcus asked. Ready, I said. I walked out of the office, my heels clicking on the polished floor. I didn't look back. I had my dignity. I had my clients. And I had the distinct, warm satisfaction of knowing that somewhere in a cooling office tower, Preston was finally learning the most important lesson of business. You can fire the employee, you can delete the email account, but you can never, ever fire the truth. And the truth is, I was never difficult to manage. I was just too good to be led by a fool. I adjusted the silk blouse beneath my charcoal suit. I had nowhere left to run. My ascent was just beginning. I hit the elevator button, going up.